Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight, brought to you by the Georgetown NAACP Branch number 5520. We got a lot to talk about, as usual, regarding human rights, civil rights, and social justice, and some local stuff going on. And we want to keep you informed, so we hopped on today at 2 o'clock because, as usual, being social justice warriors, we are all moving around doing our thing. So right after this opening, we'll be back to discuss what's going on in Georgetown and beyond. We'll see you in a moment.
Heavenly Father, we ask you to put a hand of protection.
Well, we're back at our special time today. You know what to do, folks. Drop your comments and questions in the comment section and go to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe us because we got to build up our numbers, folks. And also, anything that supports our community, the Gullah Geechee community, African American community, you go out and you build those numbers up by liking and subscribing to their channels. Let me bring in my co-host today, Miss Ebony Hughes, third vice president of the Georgetown NAACP Branch number 5520. Good afternoon, Ebony.
Good afternoon, everybody. I was about to say good morning, but good afternoon, everybody.
I know we're so used to doing it in the morning. Good to see you, Ebony. And as usual, we see you on the move. So we're going to get right to it. Let's bring in our other co-host, our president, Marvin Neal. Hello, Marvin.
Hello. How you doing, Marilyn and Ebony?
We're doing good. Thank you very much.
Y'all look well. Busy body.
Thank you. We try.
So you.
Yeah. I know you're going to give us an update on our national convention that you just got back home from, what's going on a national, state, and local basis. So we'll get to that in a moment. And let's go ahead and bring in Deontay Winchester, second vice. Is he second? No, I'm second. First vice president of the Georgetown NAACP. Deontay, are you there? All right.
I am. Hello, everyone. Please forgive me for being audio. I am traveling back home from a much-needed vacation.
Very good. And I'm jealous because I need one too. But that's all right. I'm glad you took one for all of us. All right, everybody. Before we get into our updates and everything, I just want to announce to everyone. I was hoping to get Mr. Jeremiah Jackson, president of the Andrews Branch 5565 on because they are having a community forum this Thursday in Andrews with the mayor and 2 county council members in Andrews. So we're going to put that up right there. So there's going to be a community forum this Thursday, July 28th, 6:30 p.m. at the Rouse Executive Center, 7 Maple Avenue in Andrews. You need to stay engaged, folks. Connecting citizens with city and county governments. The Georgetown NAACP Branch number 5565 with Mayor Frank McCleary, Everett, Carolina, County Council Member District 3, and Raymond Newton, County Council Member District 5, will be in attendance to take your questions and comments about what's happening with the city and county government. So y'all need to come on out and be there. It is good to see the Andrews Branch doing the work that needs to be done. Any comments from anybody?
That is a critical forum there, Marilyn, because if you notice how we kept connecting Andrews with Georgetown, which they're part of Georgetown and Williamsburg County. So a lot of times they get left out, of the picture a lot of times. That's why we consistently try to keep them engaged with us. And we encourage Williamsburg County to do the same thing. So we definitely doing some tri-county forums and stuff of that nature ourselves, with Williamsburg, Andrews, and Georgetown, to make sure that everybody's connected, because that's where we lose out at when we are divided and conquer, because those county councilmen there, they share a part of each one of those counties. Raymond Newton share a part of Georgetown and Williamsburg, and Everett, Carolina shares a part of Georgetown and Andrews. So we have to make sure that everybody's engaged and we're connecting those dots. We definitely encourage everyone that can from Georgetown which Andrews is a part of Georgetown, to go out and support that forum and really ask questions and get engaged, because there's a lot of money still out there floating for Andrews and Georgetown. That's why it's important to stay connected. It's important to be engaged, like that young brother's doing right now, brother
Jeremiah Jackson.
Jeremiah Jackson, yeah.
Yeah, very good. All right. So kudos to Jeremiah for putting this together, making that happen. I must say that's a real nice flyer, especially since I was the one to design it. Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
It's all good, folks. I had to just slip that in there. Yeah, Jeremiah called me yesterday. Tell me, can you do a flyer for me? But we're always ready and happy to help our fellow citizens and everything. Ebony, you mentioned something before we came on that we needed to talk about. I'm gonna let you remember what the topic was.
You muted, Ebony.
I think you're muted. I'm getting echo all of a sudden. I'm going to mute. Ebony, if you got a phone call, you might have to back out and come back in, or turn your audio off and on. Because sometimes.
Okay, what about now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. What was the topic you and I mentioned very quickly before we went live?
About the community meeting and forum with the candidate for state superintendent.
That's right. If you could give me those details of what's going on, I'd appreciate it. And my apologies for throwing that at you. But you see my brain short-circuited. But yes. Who's coming to
town? Miss Lisa Ellis, who is running for state superintendent. She's a candidate that's going to be on the ballots here soon. Good morning, President Spain from Arlington, Virginia. Thank you for joining. But Miss Lisa Ellis, state superintendent candidate, will be here in Georgetown to share with the community her platform. Okay, doesn't matter the party necessarily. You should come out and hear what she has to say so you'll know who you're voting for. It's going to be in Georgetown at 1001 Front Street, BSMT. It's actually the building right across from Wells Fargo. So just know that the entrance to that center is in the back of the building. So you will have to park and walk around to the back and come on in to hear what she has to say.
Very good. Thank you, Ebony. And you are correct that we need to come out regardless of party and find out the platform of these candidates. So this is Lisa Ellis, South Carolina Secretary of Education candidate. She is a candidate. 4 p.m. this Monday, 725 at 1001 Front Street in the basement office. Entrance is in the back. So park and head to the back. All right. President J.D. Spain, of course, it's always good to see you. Thank you for joining us again. Throw that up there. All right. And welcome back, Mr. President. So I'm assuming, President Neal, that he is talking to you.
We had a great I had a great send-off, though. I spent some time with JD and the family in Bucksville prior to leaving out. Man, we had some great fish and ribs and you name it. And that baked beans, man, God have mercy, that baked beans was off the chain. You talk with Gullah, Maryland, that was Gullah at its best, baby. It was no baked beans I've tasted like that yet. Nobody made baked beans like that.
Well, I noticed that we didn't get the invitation, but we won't.
Y'all did get the invitation. Yes, you did.
I don't remember getting some invitation. An invitation in spirit does not count.
Listen, the craziest thing is they must have been really good for them to make headline news on Spotlight.
Thank you. Thank you. Man, them baked beans are real good.
It was off the chain. You hear me? And that fish, oh, man.
Invitations in spirit do not count. We got to have the phone call. We got to have the email, the text message. Y'all come on down. Okay.
All right. Great fellowship. But also back to the Secretary of Education. There will be at the Monday, also the 25th at 5:30 at the Democratic headquarters at 149 King Street, following that meeting at Ebony's office in the back in front of the Wells Fargo Bank. So she will be there also at 5:30 on Monday. And that was one of the highlights of the NAACP convention, education, and the impact of the directions that the country is, some folks in the country is trying to go with the education. And we need to really do some work there in that area. And I think we already started the work in Georgetown, Maryland.
So speaking of highlights in education topic, go ahead, Ebony, before we
just so I can slide that in. Access Alliance executive suites, our doors are open for groups, for organizations to have community meetings. All right. So if you are interested in having a space, you can always give our office a call, and you can schedule that time, 866-454-9467. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ebony. Thank you for saying that. So, President Neal, what are the highlights? What are the hot topics we need to know about what's going on nationally? You just came back from the National NAACP convention that took place in, where did it take place? You told me. We were talking. Yeah, we talked all week.
Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Thank you. Atlantic City, New Jersey. And next year is in Boston. Yep. I love Boston, so hopefully I can make it next year. But what are the highlights that we need to know about as we continue the work?
Well, we focused a lot on education, housing, reform, criminal justice as it relates to bail funding and marijuana, and that's that type of nature. And those things that's really hurting minorities and those that's been disenfranchised for just smoking a joint now, and crack. They talked about crack when it was popular to imprison black males. Now, when cocaine comes into the picture and opioids, now it becomes a mental health crisis instead of an imprisonment. So those things we have to work on. And Ebony, you could jump in on that, because I know you have a bail funding and stuff program that we definitely need to support and stuff. And I'm definitely need to do an allotment to it. And that's the type of things that they were focused on. They also focused on housing, affordable housing in these communities, and equity when it comes to homes and stuff, and what puts us behind the power curve. How banks are, and the lending practices that's going on in these banks right now, where, you walk through the door and you're all automatically, your interest rate change, or you're disqualified by walking through the door without them even reviewing your applications at times. And we have understood that from just Andrew's situation with Pastor Rouse, and another situation with Ricky Washington in Browns Ferry. They were just disapproved without them even looking at the application, saying they do not need a house of that type, in that area or that size. And I remember that so well. And those are some of the things that we are talking about fighting through. Economic development, talking about closing the wealth gap, in home ownership, decreasing the wealth gap by creating multi-generational wealth for African Americans, financial estate planning. I know, Marilyn, you talk a lot about that in your presentations, consistently with the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce, and owning your own businesses, and reparation policies for Black American descendants of people of enslaved in the United States. We talked some about that and stuff, and we'll break it down more. We'll have a show just for that purpose and stuff, because I have all the data. They talked about the support of fairness in taxation to reduce racial wealth gap through federal tax policy, restoring the states and local tax deduction. And if you look at how we go from presidency to presidency, how the tax it varies, and it jumped based on who was the president. We look at right now how Donald Trump has made it so easy for the wealthy to get wealthy and for the poor to continue to suffer under this taxation policy. So we have to be careful how things are programmed into our community and stuff, because sometimes you're voting for people based on the moment instead of people based on principles in the long haul. And that's what we have to be careful with. Just like you see the gas tax right now, all these stuff that went up, that's not a president's issue. That's a voting issue. And we have to make sure we understand that. A lot of times we say, the president ain't doing this, ain't doing that. Presidents don't control gas taxes. As you've seen in Georgetown, Carl Anderson submitted a letter back to the House of Representatives talking about the gas tax is higher in Georgetown than the other county. But if you look at who's over Georgetown, right back to the Hemingway group. You see what I'm saying? So, and who owns the oil in majority of the oil in Georgetown? Has a lot to do with Hemingway. So all those things we have to keep in mind, and we have to call it out as it is. And that was one of the purpose why we were pushing so hard to get new leadership in Georgetown in the county council, in that county, in the county administration position, because it was necessary to get new leadership so we could calm some of these things down and recognize what's going on instead of suppress it to the point where people think it is just the way it's supposed to be, becomes the norm. There's so much I could go on and on if we want to do the whole show. In education, they're talking about, anti-racism between, K through 12. And we dealt with some of that just right here in the recent hiring practices in Georgetown, with this new superintendent. Some things there that just happening that should not be happening. We're looking at a consent decree that's talking about how important it is to get more minority in these staffs and administrative position, But what we looked at coming into the school year, you hired 24 whites and 3 blacks in those positions, key positions, just coming into the school year. But this is the guy they gave an $8,000 raise because of what happened with COVID. We all could take credit for COVID. Everybody take credit for that. We spent a ton of money dealing with COVID-19 and getting on the ground, even connecting with the school district, county council, hospital, all those areas. So let's not pay somebody, not to do their job, because that's what he's doing now. He's not doing his job by bringing in all these folks that looks like him. It's white privilege what's really going on, and we have to call it that. We're going to continue to call it that until we see the change. Also, school district, county council, and all.
Marvin, I know for us to see the change that locally we provide training, and I know we hit the highlights of the national convention, but I really want people to understand that this training we provide on the local level, training is also provided at the national convention so we can continue the fight to make change happen. What kind of training goes on the national convention level that folks who want to join the NAACP may have access to if they go to the national convention? What kind of training is provided?
They have training from environmental impact. They have training from housing, how to deal with housing, and how to actually get money for housing. That's people that can't afford housing. They have money for on the health side, with the health gap. They have all their people there that actually issues the dollars and cents. And even have money from the point of getting children into school and keeping them there. Because a lot of times our children get into college, and that 3rd and 4th year, it just takes over, and they end up not completing their college education. They have money and stuff for the voting rights, fighting for redistricting and stuff of that nature. All those training came through at the national level and stuff. You have training on police reform and how to deal with the issues that we are dealing with right now in Georgetown. When it comes to blacks being killed, by policemen, it's Blue Lives Matter. But when a black policeman kills a white man, there's something wrong with that picture. So we all have to wait on the investigation to take place, but we can't sat in our seat and stay up and be asleep at the wheels and thinking something going to happen just because we're waiting on the split. No, you have to ask for the data. We can't say, okay, we have communities right now where they're waiting on the sheriff department to tell them how to respond as an NAACP unit. That's backwards. We don't wait on that. You get the data and then you respond as necessary to deal with the issues and bring it out to the people. And that's what social justice comes in at. That's how you respond with marching and protesting, press conference that we did right prior to me going to the conference. Those are the type of things we have to be doing. So, and right now, Maryland, the national, they're moving, full speed ahead, especially on criminal justice and criminal justice reform. That is huge because we have, I think it was right at 12% of the population, but 50% of the imprisonment, 60% of the imprisonment. That's crazy. And, the people that we're putting in prison right now for drugs and stuff, the same folks in the white communities walking the streets. They're in and out, all pat on the back. Just recently, right there we were talking about just schools and stuff, and this one lady walked up to me and said, and I want to call her name. Wow, kids were smoking pot right in the bathroom, and smoking pot in the bathroom in Georgetown County schools across the water on the east side. Okay, snorting cocaine right in the bathroom. Okay, someone walked in, so I'll leave that alone. You don't want to mess with that. But here it is on this side of the track in the Cowles Bay area and schools of that nature. You know, those children would have been locked up facing general session court, because I've dealt with that.
It's called school to prison pipeline.
That's how we deal it.
Mass incarceration. It's a problem.
It's a huge problem. And they even talked about how we have to make sure that our people that understand our people's culture, that looks like them and from their community, are in these schools, so these children have someone to speak with when they get into situations. Because what we're dealing with right now, we're dealing with minority Black schools in Georgetown with no Blacks in leadership, none. All schools should have minority and some presence of leadership or in the building and teaching capacities in these schools. You have some schools right now walking on with no Black teachers, no Black administrators, and no position.
Well, I will say this, and my hat's off when I see people doing a good job. President Spain with the Arlington branch, NAACP, have done a wonderful job. I've seen the articles and things of that nature of what they have done in their community about the school to prison pipeline. And like you said, it's important. That's why we vote elected officials in there, because they are supposed to be representatives and speak for us. The problem is when we choose and elect folks into these seats and they have their own agenda and they are for themselves, they are supposed to speak to the needs of the people. And we see time and time again where that's not happening, because they are public servants. We are paying them to speak on our behalf. And when that doesn't happen, that creates a major problem. And that's going on here. And that's why it's important in schools that if there are majority minority, they need to have representation. They need to have people and teachers and staff that look like them.
Most definitely. But when you have someone in the top leadership of the school district that came in under the same principles, what do you expect?
The same thing.
You can't get no more than what you brought in. But one thing we have to do, we have to continue to make sure we identify those issues and bring it back up to entities that can do something about, like the Department of Justice. Bring in attorneys and stuff to fight the NAACP, LDF, ACLU. You have situations right now, it seems as though each school is running on its own turn. One school wouldn't put children's picture in the yearbook. You know what I'm saying? Because of their decisions. LGBTQ communities, huge right now. We have to fight with them. That's not optional, because they are being totally disenfranchised and discriminated against. That's one of the largest communities. Most of them don't even have anyone to fight for them. You have whites and LGBTQ right now are reaching out to organizations to help fight for them. And NAACP is fighting with everyone that's being disenfranchised. Because until we do it together, we will continue to lose this battle. Bottom line, we have to highlight it, put it in the media, call it what it is. Folks can scream all they want. We are not God, and we don't make choice for people. People have a right to make their own choices. And that's what's going on right now.
Well, I know we're about collaboration and cooperative work, and that is grounded in our African roots, and that is what has allowed us to make a way out of no way. So anything else that we need to talk about? Ebony, Deontay, I know you're on the road. Here we go. JD President Spain would like to hear Vice President Deontay Winchester thoughts on lack of diversity in school administrations, the psychological aspects for the students. Deontay, would love to hear that. The importance of diversity in school administrators. If you can unmute and join us. I hope he can unmute. He was with us.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it comes down to basically conditioning. When these students go to school every day and they don't see anyone that looks like them, they are somewhat conditioned to believe that they cannot achieve that position, to be in leadership and to achieve positions that are of high regard in the community. So when we do right and have these minorities represented the way they should be, these kids are encouraged to do the best that they can so that they can be all that they can. But if we don't see individuals that look like us in positions that we want to be in, sometimes we are discouraged. I'm not saying all people, but some kids can be discouraged in that situation. And I see it all the time. We have to see it to believe that we can do it. And in the school district, that's just not the case, because in many of these schools, they are just no blacks in leadership positions, as Mr. Neal highlighted. And that's a dang on shame, because the kids are the ones that are being hurt in this situation. And if we have leadership at the school district that are not looking out for the best interest of the children in that district, then they need to be replaced with those who are. And if the school district won't hold that leadership accountable, we as the people need to replace them with individuals who will hold leadership in the school district accountable for their actions.
Thank you, Deontay. First
You know,
Vice President.
and really, that's one of our biggest challenges right now that I've noticed. If we don't hold our elected officials accountable in all areas, but we're focused on education right now, the impact is crucial. Crucial. You know, when you're looking at, say, Maryville School, for instance, you had a principal that was removed from that position, and they tried to figure out why they removed her. 2 and 3 months after she had been removed, weeks, less than a month out from school closure. There's a problem because white teachers complained because they weren't having their way anymore. That's what it boiled down to. You have a human resources department that's led by failed teachers, a failed teacher that's leading that department, but they're making decisions on who goes into these schools. And they're the one doing the atmosphere and diversity, the atmospheric check on these schools and stuff. We got a problem. They're selecting the people that goes into the schools. And when you have blacks sitting in these positions and keeping their mouth closed about it, you really have a problem. And you have a superintendent that he's trying to find out more of how we are getting information versus doing something about the information that we are presenting to them. We really got a problem. So that's all about suppressing the voice of the people, and that's the type of organization that will withhold information. That's the one that's doing things under the cover. That's when it gets scary, and that's when the school board has to take charge and make a decision who's in charge of the superintendent of these districts. Because some of these school board members feel as though that the superintendent's in charge of them and tells them what to do.
Well, Mr. Neal, I want to, if you don't mind, speak on to what Mr. Spain is saying. He's saying is there equity, diversity, equity and inclusion officer position in public schools. I don't think that there is. However, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying his name, but the former chief of police, Kevin Waits, he is the equity, inclusion, diversity and inclusion officer for Horry County, Myrtle Beach City, and he the first ever, and that position was created. That doesn't exist here, but see, you have it there again, where because our minds are not open to investing in people, investing in children, which is where everything starts, then we don't have positions like that. Someone from Georgetown County has to go now to work in Horry County, which is great because it has to start somewhere, but that position could have been created here in Georgetown. That position is new as of, I don't even think, a year ago, and then to piggyback off of what Deontay was saying about the psychological effects as adults, we can sit back and say, well, so long as they have good teachers, or so long as they have good staff, the color of the staff member shouldn't matter. But psychologically, a child, okay, doesn't think like we do. Their minds are not mature like our minds are mature. They're still developing. And on a psychological level, like Deontay said, when they don't see people that look like them, then they begin to think that positions like that are not achievable for people like them. And we got to remember that and stop thinking about our own perspective. We have to see it from their eyes, from their level. Not saying that we got to stoop to their level, but we have to meet them where they are and understand how that affects them. What's Mr. Breeden talking about right here?
Not only that, Ebony, but we also need to understand that a child is significantly more likely, research tells us and indicates that a child is more likely to talk to someone who reminds them of those that they love, i.e., parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, siblings. They are more likely to talk to that person about a situation that is detrimental in their lives than someone who does not. So what does that mean? Our kids can be going through something and they are not going to say something because they don't see someone that they're comfortable talking to. That's a problem.
That's right.
That's right. And Braden, what he's talking about there is right on point and stuff. Because if you just look at it now, and one of our biggest challenges, Maryland, when these principals and superintendents are coming into our schools and advocating for the jobs and stuff and position themselves to come here, the community don't come out. We find ourselves reacting to situations where we should be proactive and having people in place. But when you have people in place, as we have enjoyed, we have a superintendent with a master's degree in Georgetown. He had a supervisor, 4 or 5 people under him with a doctorate degree, and superintendent certified. 2 blacks turned away to bring in someone with a master's. So that's by design. That's not by credentials. That's by design.
Well, Mr. Neal, if I can even add on to that, what makes it really difficult is that when children, African Americans, children don't see individuals that look like them, not only are they not comfortable with talking with them, but what's hurtful is that when they grow up and they want to teach, they want to be involved in these things, it almost like it proves them true. Because then when they get to that place, they make it so difficult for them to be hired. And that's proven time and time again within the school district. So they're raised up to think, well, I'm not good enough, or I don't see anyone like me, just for them to try to get in these positions. And it's almost like they're proving them right. And that's why we don't have a lot of their programs trying to bring Black men into teaching, trying to bring African Americans into the school district. But then, it's hurdle after hurdle, and it's difficult because people feel like they have to fight for things that they felt like they did the right thing. I went to school. I did this. I kept myself out of trouble. And now that I want to be in these positions, they're giving me a hard time about it. And that's rough in our community. And that's why you have people moping around, because they feel like things like this are unattainable.
But if you look at, just go to the counties adjacent to where you live, Albany and Maryland, the Black teachers that are leaving Georgetown, they're just going to county over and getting what they want. One county over, because it's the mentality of those that's in leadership. It's not that they're not qualified. You have to be careful who you bring in and for what purpose. If you bring in someone to suppress the situation, that's what you have. That's an oppressive state. You have to make sure you know what you're bringing in and fight for it. Because if we're not careful, every position in Georgetown County School District, and I'm speaking for Georgetown because I see it, will be led by whites, and that's the way it's by design based on who you bring in. And we have to be so careful and speak on it. And I know some of them are listening to me today, but that's fine. But you know what? I will stand up for what I believe and what I see until somebody prove me different. If you want to prove me wrong, hey, show me. I'm like from Missouri now. You have to show me, because what I'm looking at is just not correct. Maryville, bottom line, clean house. Now, the assistant principal in Maryville, He helped led the charge on getting rid of Tanja Johnson. You know, supported by the Human Resources Department, Doug Jenkins. Supported by, because the complaint went through them. He's in charge of certified positions. Okay, but what happened there? Ignored the complaint. Young lady goes back to the district and communicate with the top. You know, it's like she's talking on deaf ear, obviously, because the assistant principal get lateral transferred to another school, and he's still the assistant principal. But the idea for the Tanja Jackson, the principal that was at Maryville, oh, she gets demoted. She gets demoted. And see, that's where you have to be so careful. And that's why you have to have such strong advocacy through the Justice Department, through EEOC, LDF, the ACLU, and these organizations, and to make sure that we are fighting for those things that's affecting our people, because that's affecting our people. That's one young lady that you just talked about, Emily, that fought her way all the way up to the top, did the work, did the job, and look what happened. Because I am not happy as a white person, because I've been there so long and we used to doing things this way. It's beginning to change now. That's not fair to us. Who's us?
Right. That's right. Hopefully Mr. Neal answered the question for Mr. Jambert Sweet here about the situation over in Maryville. But you know, it's not just in the school district. It's playing out city and in the county of Georgetown. You know, I saw the recording of, I wasn't able to be at city council meeting this week, but if you look at the recording, Gab News had it played out right before our eyes. You know, I don't want to speak much on that, but when you have officials that use their so-called power, which I really don't believe that is power, we give them power that they really don't have, because they're supposed to be working and speaking on behalf of the greater good of all people, but then they use it as power to silence and suppress the very people who they are supposed to be serving. And I won't say anything, because sometimes what they say, I hear people talking, it's like, oh, the NAACP said, oh, well, this person said. It's not about what I said, what the NAACP said, what Mr. Neal, Marilyn, nobody has to say. Watch the recording for yourself and make your own educated judgment about what is going on. We just invite you to participate. And one of the ways you can participate without even doing anything is to watch and look at what is going on, and it speaks for itself. But the problem is most of us don't know what's going on because we don't attend, we don't keep up what is actually happening. And what's happening is that the rights of people right before our eyes is slowly diminishing. That's just like a person who gains weight. Sometimes they'll gain weight and then they'll wake up one day and say, oh my God, how did I gain all this weight? But it was happening in little increments over a period of time. And then one day you wake up and then it seems like it was this overnight thing, but it wasn't overnight. Please watch. They said, the old people said, watch as well as pray.
I do want to specifically thank you, Ebony, for that, because that is just so on point. I want to go back and specifically answer Mr. John Bar Sweet's question that the Board of Education was kept out of the loop. We are aware of that. The details, we could look into that and everything. And I hope that answered your question a little bit more. But just
Marilyn,
as you gain, go ahead.
Marilyn, before you get back to Ebony,
mm-hmm.
they were not only kept out of the loop. I myself took it to the Board of Education. They didn't even know Tanja Johnson was even removed from Maryville School. Okay, so people need to know that the Board of Education did not even know, and I don't only fault the board for not knowing, but I fault the board for not holding that superintendent accountable, because that's by design. Bottom line, if they don't hold him accountable, it will continue to be that way. And you have people walking around that district office, black and white, on eggshells right now. because they have a toddler in the education, in the superintendent position. The bottom line, it's no different. Somebody who won't speak to them and all this stuff, that's crazy. I've witnessed it when people don't have their way in these positions, and when he don't have his way. It's a problem that we have, and we have to deal with that problem. And we have not had a problem like this since I've been living in Georgetown County School District. The bottom line. So they better wake up and smell the coffee. And they better do something about it, because they're gonna have some serious situations in Georgetown County schools here if they're not careful.
And another thing is this right here. You know, when he came into this job, you know, a lot of it was done underhandedly in a way. But once he got the job, and we give him that respect. And we gave him the benefit of the doubt. You know, maybe hopefully he'll do the right thing. You know, maybe the guy will be a blessing in disguise.
Yep.
But once again, don't listen at what we say. Look at what has played out in these various positions. The evidence is right in front of you, where you can make your own decision about what's going on.
And this is why it's so important when we emphasize stay engaged, get engaged. And there's so many levels to being engaged. Ebony cited one. Get informed. Go online to the Georgetown County School District website and look at the school board meeting video, or go to Gab News online. Watch the school board video for yourself and get that information. You can vote. That's getting engaged. You can go to school board meetings, county and city council meetings, another way to get engaged. And when you go, make sure you go back to your family, friends, and neighborhoods and communities, and you share the information. Because what hurts us is the lack of knowledge, because they know knowledge is power. And they will sit there and say, well, we did all we could. But let's be honest, for our community, you have to go beyond the traditional means of communication. And that's not catering. That's doing what you're supposed to do to keep your constituency, your neighbors, your community informed. And that's something I hear time and time again from not only elected officials, but employees of government. Well, we did what we could. And then you ask them what they really did. It's the bare minimum. All right. They just want to pick up that check and check off those boxes. And we have to be engaged so we can demand that they do their jobs. And that speaks to the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I cannot tell you how many of these things I attend about DEI, and nothing changes. But we've got to be in these spaces and speak out so people understand where we are coming from and the changes that need to be made, and accountability. We must hold them accountable. You know, we got to wrap this up, y'all, because Ebony and I have both got to go. So we're going to do some last words. But I do want to note that for some reason on my mind, shop teachers, the old shop teachers, the ones who taught the woodworking and HVAC and all of that, popped into my mind. And I remember as I came through school, all the shop teachers that I knew were Black. You go into these schools, not only do you not see shop, but if you do see shop every once in a while, you don't see people who look like us. So we are talking about representation, and we know that the crafts and the trades are good paying jobs, but representation matters, folks. You have to see to believe. And some people don't have to see to believe. They can see it in their mind and they say, I want to be a plumber, go forth, and they do it. But a lot of people need to see it to believe it. They have to touch it to believe it. It matters who is in administration. It matters who's in the classroom. It matters who is in the shop. And we see the dearth of Black folks in these positions that financially hurt our community. So this is not only the short-term impact of the education of our children, it's the long-term impact of the economic justice for our community.
Maryland.
Of getting people educated on the college level. It's all college. 4-year, 2-year, whatever. You need to see it to believe it. Go ahead, Ebony.
Sorry about that. I mean to cut across you.
No problem.
To add as a side note, you know, some people don't want to see, don't want to believe, Because right now we got the hearings of the January 6th insurrection going on. And it's crazy because you see it. Okay, you can't make this stuff up because they got it on camera. And you still got folks who still want to support Donald Trump. And I just don't understand that. But just know that you need to have your own mind. Don't go off what anybody else said. Use your own mind. Don't go off what your daddy or somebody else in your family or friend says. Go and do the right thing. You don't want to associate yourself with people who are doing certain things. You want to associate with people who are doing good and the good of the people, all people.
That's so true. And I want to remind everybody this Thursday, stay engaged by going. Let's start here in Andrews. This Thursday, Andrews is having a community forum. This is their county council members, and also the mayor of Andrews will be there. Start here, folks. If you got to start someplace, start here. And go to this community and forum, ask your questions, make your comments, let them know that you are engaged and you are there for learning and getting knowledge and to become an advocate for your community. Just by showing up, you could be an advocate for your community. All right. Anything else we need to know as we wrap up here today?
Real quick, if I may, and Mr. Neal alluded to this a little bit. Climate surveys have been used to remove minorities from key positions in Georgetown County School District. But all the while, we still have infantile leadership at schools like Georgetown Middle School. We have individuals being characterized as tyrants leading over at Waccamaw. But there's no climate survey there. So I'm advocating for climate surveys for all schools. If you're going to do it for one, do it for all. And when you do that survey, use it for what it's supposed to be intended for. Because if you look at Waccamaw, half those teachers is leaving. They leaving for a reason. They ain't leaving because they feel like it. They leaving because there's a problem with leadership. The whole 8th grade almost is gone out of Georgetown Middle School. They left for a reason. So I know that the leadership of Georgetown's County School District is listening to the spotlight. You're not going to comment, but I know you hear this. Climate surveys for all schools. No matter who the leader is at that school, what they look like, climate survey. And do the right thing with it when you do it.
You know,
Thank you.
and not only that, when you are having problems at a school, if I'm running an entity and I'm having a problem there, and if it's to the point where I have to come to you, well, it's time for you to come to the school and see what's going on as the leader. When you have the leadership of the school district that only shows up on the white side of the schools, go to the white schools and stuff, and showed up maybe once or twice in the last 2 years in the minority schools, but yet still you're removing a principal, we got a problem. Because you have not done your due diligence to that school, to that principal, nor have you done justice to the school district and these children. You know, sitting back behind the desk, you know, padding the pockets of the go boards and stuff, and mainly just whites in leadership. You have people in leadership at Georgetown County School District that's creating positions for their own children and bringing them in. And we're still talking about $13 to $15 minimum wage. We should not even be talking about that. And you have the budget person that stands up to the mic and says, well, I never thought about moving the minimum wage. What does that say to you? I'm focused on me, myself, God. You see what I'm saying? Those are the things we need to pay attention to, because what they're telling you, that's what happened. They never thought about us. That's what they're saying. They never thought about us. We never thought about that, because that's classified people. Those are bus drivers. Those are cafeteria workers. Okay? That's who you're talking about. You know, we never thought about them. Dr. King went to Tennessee to do what? Fight for the garbage workers. Because until we take care of the least of us, nobody will be satisfied. Bottom line, that's what we have to start at, the least of us. The problem we have, even as Black people, we have to wake up and smell a coffee, because we made it. We think we made it to the top. We can't forget about those that's still on the bottom. Because a lot of times we put our foot on each other to get to the top also. We have to stop doing that. It's time for us to start talking to each other. And we have some blacks in Georgetown County School District that have put their foot on some folks in Georgetown County School District. And we're not finished with that either. That's a problem. When blacks are moving blacks out of leadership by design, that's a problem. And it's coerced. We got to be real about what we are doing.
And that's why we need to stay engaged. Ebony, I knew you wanted to say something. I'll let you wrap up because we're going to wrap this up.
I think that everything that has been said, I believe somebody can go ahead and give us a benediction or whatever so we can get out of here. Everything that was said was needed, and it's honest, it's truthful, and it can be backed up with evidence. These are not opinions. These are not how we feel. All feelings and jokes aside, all of this is what is going on in our community, and we have to be aware of this so that we'll know how to participate in creating positive changes. Thank you, everybody on here today, and for everybody who's watching.
Thank you. You're much appreciated. Thank you, Ebony. We want to thank everybody. Candidate forums, we always host candidate forums, so just stay tuned. Those are coming up. So Doug, thank you for bringing that up. Georgetown NAACP, along with our community partners, we definitely do candidate forums, and that will continue. We want to thank everybody for joining us today here on Spotlight with the Georgetown NAACP Branch number 5520. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and we all got to go and continue our social justice work on that road. Welcome back, President Neal. Glad to have you back. And Deontay, be safe on that road. And you too, Ebony. I see you out there in the car. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And you like how I just sliding that music in. So that's the cut off music, folks. And we will see you next Saturday at 11 a.m. Thank you for joining us today. And our official time at 2 p.m. today. And we're out, folks. Have a good one. Good night. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Let's play that music.